I have you now.
They want to mess with my droid. They're going to pay for it.
This is the way.
You may fire when ready.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
Hello there.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
I am so excited to talk about the High Republic today because Phase 3 is upon us. There have been some comics that came out today. The Eye of Darkness releases next week. We got a comic last month. And we're talking about the lead-up to Phase 3 today. This is the Star Wars Station, and I am your host, Carter, and I'm really excited to dive in head first to the High Republic. This ambitious multimedia project has brought a lot of joy to a lot of Star Wars fans because it's touched comics and books and video games and TV shows, and more is beginning its final phase. It's really, really interesting that they've been able to do this, that they have done this giant multimedia project just like they did way back with Shadow of the Empire. And this is touching more. Like I said, it's touching TV shows. And we're going to talk briefly about the new Young Jedi Adventures episodes and their big High Republic Phase 1 cameos a little bit in the news section. But with the success that we've seen for the High Republic, I do not think that when Phase 3 wraps up, it's the last we're going to see of the era anytime soon. But I do think that the story the Luminous authors have set up for us is coming to a close, and next week we're going to be talking about the beginning of the end when we cover the Eye of Darkness novel. But for today, we're going to take a look back at the past two phases and how they shaped this story, all of the information we know, and we're going to be discussing big moments, favorite characters, and a lot more. Here to get into the conversation with me is my co-host, the fourth firebrand, Colin Archer.
Hey, Carter, man, I started reading these, Not reading, I drive a bunch, I'm able to listen to them on audiobook. I'm still going to say reading because it's easier to say.
Yeah, I say read. I think it's reading.
I started a little more than a month and a half ago.
Yeah, you chewed through 9 books.
Yeah, I feel really privileged to be able to do something like that. And here's a hint for anyone that listens to audiobooks. You can adjust the speed of them. I listen to them all at 1.7 speed. So I was able to burn through these things. It's like 1 3/4 times faster or something like that.
So I experimented with that. You told me about that last week. 1.7 was too fast for me. I had to go down to 1.3 is my comfortable spot. Yeah. That's where I felt all right.
You know, it really is a challenge. And the other thing too, so let's say you get in your vehicle, you're on a road trip for Thanksgiving this coming holiday, and you're like, let's listen to a book. And you go to put one on, and if I were to put it on at 1.7 speed, I'd be the only person who could listen to that.
Right.
Nobody else could.
Right.
And then it's like,
well, and you get used to it, right? Like you can't hop in. Someone's doing something at 1.7 speed, and you just jump in way too hard.
Here's another thing. We were able to listen to audiobook of Eye of Darkness, and at regular speed, I couldn't listen to it.
It was too slow. That's funny. So did you speed it up?
Oh yeah. I could do that.
So 9 books in a month and a half is really impressive, and I'm super excited because I'd been telling you to read the High Republic for a while, and I'm glad you jumped in, and I think you enjoyed it. So we're going to talk about that. On the other hand, I read the books as they came out. So I had the anticipation of waiting and the slow digestion, and I'm really curious to see what our different perspectives are on the story since we consumed the story in 2 pretty different ways. I mean, you did the Netflix binge, and I did like regular TV.
Exactly right. And another thing I want to add to this, because we wanted to deliver a quality podcast, Carter and I could spend an hour talking about multiple hours talking about nuances of every book. We reserve these discussion outside of the very top-end topics for this podcast.
Right.
So we're going to have some disagreements. We're going to have some nitpicks.
Oh yeah, we haven't discussed pretty much anything. I mean, other than an occasional text, I knew you were on a certain book and I'd be like, "Oh, did you get to this part yet? Oh, wasn't that neat?" But other than that, we haven't really said anything.
Dear listener, you're getting our raw conversations, and I'm so looking forward to this. And outside of this Phase 1 and Phase 2 sets of books, these Phase 3 books, the one that was coming out on the 14th of November is phenomenal.
Oh, it's great.
I cannot wait to discuss that.
It's great. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about that next week. But this week, we've got 8 other books and comics and all kinds of stuff to talk about. Now, you only read the books. You read the adult novels plus 2 young adult novels and an audio drama,
so let's
right?
go through it phase by phase. Here's what I read in phase 1. Obviously, you got to start with Light of the Jedi. That's what started it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a comic book that came out in between. Didn't do anything with the comic books. Went to Rising Storm. Skipped the comic books and young and the audio drama, Tempest Runner. I have that. I think you gifted that to me. I haven't read it.
Yeah, you have the physical script copy. Yeah.
Right. And then the last bit of phase 1 was Trial of Shadows.
No. The Fallen Star. Trial of Shadows is the
sorry.
the comic.
There's a lot.
Oh, it's a ton.
They really leaned into that last bit of phase 1, and so there's so much that happens in just that revolves around that the Fallen Star. We'll get into all this and talk about what goes on in there. But man, that's what I read in phase 1.
Right. In phase 2.
Phase 2 is set 150 years previous.
Right.
And so I read a lot more in this one than the last one. Of course, it starts with Path of Deceit, then goes to Convergence. Mm-hmm. And I didn't read The Blade.
God, and you have to. That comic is so good.
Maybe I did.
No, you haven't yet. I know you haven't yet. Because I know it's sitting on my shelf. You're gonna love it because I know one of your characters.
Is that the one we
Yes, that's the one we have talked about.
I have not read The Blade, and I very want to. We'll discuss that, and then the Battle of Jeddah, and then Cataclysm and Path of Vengeance for phase 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you ran the gamut of phase 2, and so for me, I've read everything, all of the High Republic, all the comics, except for the High Republic Adventures from phase 2. I read the phase 1. I haven't read the phase 2 yet because I wait until it's out in an omnibus to read it. And then I didn't read the junior novels in either phase.
Right.
It's kind of like it's why I don't watch Young Jedi Adventures until I have kids. My plan is to cover all children's Star Wars media as soon as I have a kid.
Right.
So let's hop right into it because there's a lot to talk about. We're not going to go explicitly phase by phase or book by book, but we're going to cover all of the adult novels at the very least, and we're going to touch on many other things and see how they all tie in together. But the first thing I want to talk about is the star of the show. What do you think about the Jedi Order in this time? The High Republic's about them in their prime. We're always talking about how we want to see stories of Jedi just doing their thing in the pre-Clone War galaxy, like the Elder from Visions, Season 1, that episode. We always say that we want to see that. Do you think the High Republic kind of delivers on that? And in both phases. Do you think it delivers in both phases or just one of those?
I really do. And there's so many different aspects to this. And you know, I'm kind of going out with the lens of, you know, think about when you started with phase 1 and phase 2 wasn't even a thought in somebody's mind, going into this back in time. And so what it really does is give a lens on the totality of basically what the situation in the book covers. But more to the point of your question, it is how the Jedi have gone from point A to point B with intertwining and interfacing the problem in all of these books, right? And so it's absolutely fantastic because, for one, it is a very diverse group of characters. From in one novel, there's a youngling involved who's really cool, and then you go to Padawan, and Bel Zedifar's the Padawan, and he and also Buryaga. They're both Padawan learners, and it's not something casual. You know, if you're just watching movies and TV shows, it's the bleakest times where Padawans were briefly looked at and elevated to not quite hastily. This one, the Padawans exist for quite a while, and are pretty much doing what normal Knights do. And then you look at Jedi Knights and Jedi Masters, and they are hyper diverse. They're not just awesome people who do awesome things. They have all these Jedi powers. Who's the guy? Buckets of Blood. That's a healer.
Yes. Yeah. Buckets of blood. Yeah.
Right. And then you have, there's just too many to count.
Well, your point,
Oh my gosh.
your point about it being such a multifaceted order at the time is something that we always hear about the Jedi Order and kind of understand about the Jedi Order, but is put on full display here. I mean, you've got so many various characters with so many different ways that they are Jedi, and the way that they're in the Order, their position in the Order, and the way they conduct themselves in the Order is all very different, because we look at the prequels and we look at the Clone Wars, and we get to see a lot of Jedi, and those Jedi are all distinctly different, but the not the issue, because it's just the part of the story that George wanted to tell at the time, but that part of the story set during the prequels is every Jedi is a warrior. Whether they're a warrior or not, whether they're a bona fide warrior like Anakin Skywalker, or they're just thrust into this warrior role, they're all warriors. They're all fighting a war, and so all those Jedi, they don't lack individual personality, but they all lack individuality within the Order. It gives you one look. The Clone War gives us one look at the Jedi Order, and it boils them down to peacekeepers plus soldiers, which they weren't even in the beginning.
Right.
And we don't get to see the explorers and the educators,
The
and
Wayfinders.
the
and
Wayfinders,
Pathfinders, or whatever it was,
exactly.
yeah.
All of those characters.
I mean, even towards the end of Phase 1 with Elzar Mann and Orla Jareni, he has to take a sabbatical, and she's, I forget the name of what she is, but she's just basically off on her own. Mm-hmm. And she's like this noted Jedi psychiatrist, if you will. They have these really fancy words for what exists in the universe.
Right.
But
They've got to say, she's a way seeker, which is basically you're a Jedi that gets to operate on your own.
Right.
And just, you don't have any of the trappings of the Order involved. Like, you follow the Force. And she's a really good character. Orla Jareni's a fan favorite. But honestly, everybody's a fan favorite. It's like you find every single one of these characters has their own niche following on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever, where they've just got this big fan group around this one specific Jedi. And I think that shows that they effectively took an ensemble cast and ensemble stories and still put a lot of attention and a lot of detail into the characters that they've created and made you enjoy the characters, even if you're only with them for a few chapters. I mean, you read The Light of the Jedi, and you may only be with Avar Kriss for 6 or 7 chapters, but people love Avar. People love all the Firebrands. People love pretty much every Jedi in the High Republic. I really haven't heard many complaints about an individual Jedi in the High Republic.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think. It's all just nitpicky things. Like, who was Bel Zedafar's master after Loden?
Oh, after Loden. Yeah, who is Bel Zedafar's master after Loden?
I don't remember, but...
You're drawing a blank on it, because I am too.
Yeah, and so, and it's not nitpicking with the story or the quality or anything like that. It's nitpicking within the universe. And so, is it all right to talk about this now? Bel Zedafar is one of my favorite characters. It's really hard for me to pin down a favorite character. And who is it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, keep going. I'm still Googling it. Don't worry.
So,
Indira Stokes. It's Indira Stokes. Yeah.
So at the end of Light of the Jedi, Bel Zedafar basically gets his wings, literally.
Right.
And saves a civilian, and Loden is in his starship, and it's like, yeah, I'm making you a Jedi Knight as soon as I get back. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and it's on the comms. It's like in the group chat. Hey man, go to work. You're going to be a Jedi Knight when this is over.
Right.
And then what's her name again?
Indira Stokes.
Indira Stokes is, some stuff goes down, and when the smoke clears, Loden's captured, and Indira Stokes is like, yeah, I don't think that Jedi Knight's going to work right yet. And so Bel Zedafar spends like the next 2 novels still being a Padawan.
Right. When he should totally be a Knight.
Yeah. Well, and I don't say that casually. Like in the start of the next novel, Bel Zedafar stops a Nihil attack. We haven't talked about them. We'll get into it. Is impaled through the torso in space, survives, and it's just the amount of stuff that he does and still is a Jedi Knight is bonkers. I was bugging Carter. I'm like, why isn't he a Jedi Knight? Because I'd start the book. But my point is overarching is nitpicky on Indira Stokes, whatever. But like, you have these teams of Jedi, and it's a lot of the Jedi book. It's Bel Zettifar with his Master Loden Greystorm, Indira Stokes, and Porter Angle are going to stop a Nihil raid. And it is one of the coolest sequences. It feels like something out of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian or an old Western.
It does. Oh, it really does. And the picture, they have really good art for it, where they're charging each other on the backs of those creatures, and it looks super good.
Yes.
It looks super good.
And so Porter Angle is 300 years old, 200 years old. Loden is this rising star in the Jedi, and Indira is another person. And like, I don't know, I'm not saying this analogy is 1-to-1, but Loden is to Obi-Wan as Bel Zettifar is to Anakin. Not in the sense of abilities or what happened or anything like that. I'm talking about in like notoriety. People are like, oh man, look at what Loden did. Look at what Obi-Wan did. And look at his apprentice, and they're doing all this cool stuff. You know, they have a notoriety or renown about them.
No, you're right. I mean, they are. Yeah, they're rising stars. You put it really well.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing is this look into the Jedi Order at this point kind of feels like they have a lot of rising stars. You've got Stellan, Avar, and Elzar. You know, they are all some of the greatest Jedi. People admire all of them. You've got Bel and Loden. Like, you have a lot of really high-performing Jedi at this point. And it doesn't feel the same way. Like, you've still got a whole council, and basically none of the people we just listed, except for Stellan, is on the council. And so you still have a whole council of Jedi where, when you look at the prequels and the Clone Wars, we're spending a lot of time with the council, and not a lot of time with Jedi off of the council, unless it's their direct Padawans.
And really, the Light of the Jedi, the first book, it culminates in one of the most epic and unifying things of Avar Kriss directing entire sectors of Jedi and the hope of the populace of moving an astrophysical object out of the path of a star so it doesn't destroy. And just to see this put to paper, it doesn't feel like events like that could take place in the original trilogy.
Sure. I mean, how do you put that? I mean, how do you put that on screen effectively? Like,
the capability of what the Jedi are doing. They couldn't do that in the prequels.
Well, they're clouded by the dark side. You're absolutely right. They just don't have the Order's not at its high point in the prequels. The fall starts well before the Phantom Menace, and that's something that we're going to talk about in this as well. You brought up Avar and that scene specifically. And one of the things that I've talked about a few times in different episodes that is one of the reasons I love the High Republic is because I'm a Force guy. Like, that's the main thing I like in Star Wars, is learning about the Force, seeing the way that all Force users interact with it. And the way that the High Republic takes each individual Jedi and then describes how they feel the Force, whether Avar feels it as a song or some feel it as a vast ocean. It's just,
or a giant machine.
Or a giant machine, all of these things. The descriptions of how the Force works to them, I thought was a brilliant idea from these authors, and it really communicates the uniqueness of these Jedi.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% there. Charles Soule
Charles Soule
is the one who wrote this one and put that to paper. And it's just a few paragraphs, but I find myself returning to that time and time again. You know, they bring it up in subsequent little parts in all the other books, but if I were a Force user, what would it look like to me?
Right.
How would the Force sing its song to me? And that concept is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It is cool. I really, really like that they did that. So you also brought up basically the other half of the story. And so we need to talk about them. And this is just for Phase 1, because we'll have a whole other group to talk about during Phase 2. But for this one, let's talk about the Nihil. This super unique villain group that they had to come up with. The Jedi can't be facing the Sith because of lines in the Phantom Menace. And, you know, we've seen a lot of Sith stories. I want to see some Sith stories in the Old Republic, maybe in the New Jedi Order stuff. This time period, I'm totally okay with not seeing Sith stuff. The Jedi need more adversaries than them, and they're given those. They're given these non-Force-wielding basically space Vikings. I mean, they're not exactly pirates. They're more like Vikings. They have territory. They have a space. They're not just roving the waters.
But they're raiders. They're pirates. They steal things.
Yes,
They're still resources.
Yeah. And they're licentious. They only care about themselves. It's all about, just whatever's going to satisfy them. And they're a really good juxtaposition to the Jedi Order who, they limit their emotions. They're chaste. They try to stay uninvolved in things, whereas the Nihil are regular people, but they embrace their emotions. They embrace, they go and grab what's going to make them happy in that moment, which is antithetical to the Jedi philosophy, essentially.
Yeah, the antagonists across all of these books are phenomenal. I mean, beyond phenomenal. It's hard to describe just how good they are. Mm-hmm. And so the way to put it succinctly is, if the Jedi is order, the Nihil are chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally. And I mean, and they're not without their abilities and superpowers. The thing that makes them scary, and I'm sitting there as, if I'm not a writer in any sense. I like to fantasize about being a writer and basically just trying to predict what's going to happen, how to solve the problems. And, how would I defeat the Nihil in a way that would be enticing to a reader? And I have no idea.
Oh, I know. I still don't. I've read we read Eye of Darkness. I have no idea what's happening next, man. I have absolutely no idea.
And so what gives them their power is the pass. And they, with their ships and path drives, are able to utilize uncharted, very quick hyperspace jumps that can put them in areas that would otherwise be totally unsafe and dangerous for the normal course of hyperspace travel. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so this gives them extreme advantages of attack and being able to flee an ingress of somebody retaliating against them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
It makes them almost unstoppable.
Yeah, and the whole first phase is essentially the Jedi trying to figure out how the Nihil can do this, like how any of this is possible and how to beat them. And, they think that they've beaten them back, and then they haven't. And it's really, the Nihil are kind of like a fungus to the Jedi Order, because no matter how hard you scrub, no matter how, it's still just there.
Yeah, black mold.
Exactly. It's just like black mold. And so the way the individual villains interact with the Jedi is really interesting, because they don't all have some vitriolic hatred of the Jedi themselves. They more have a sense that they laud their leader, Marchion Ro. He's the head Nihil. They trust him, and he has a bone to pick with the Jedi Order. And then we get a lot of looks at, these are just individuals in the galaxy. They were dregs. They were down on their luck. The Nihil would raid their planet, kill all their family, and then they would, if they were strong enough or whatever, they would go be with the Nihil. And so these are all kind of the downtrodden, the worst of the galaxy, the scum and villainy, but for some reason they hadn't joined up to a pirate band or to the Hutts. They are now with the Nihil, which are not really a criminal organization. It goes beyond them being a crime family.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe. And even in the first book, they're responsible for like grotesque atrocities.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I mean, we're not talking like something you even see in the news today. I'm talking about like millions and billions dead and extorting stuff at the risk of billions of lives. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely bonkers makes these guys so scary is they have no qualms whatsoever.
Right.
To do the most evil and vile things.
And it's all for just them seeking pleasure or them trying to grow in the ranks of the Nihil. They just want to party. But their partying is just, despicable.
Yeah.
You mentioned, they all have their unique, not powers, but abilities, essentially. Like Zetar, one of the Tempest Runners, he's a Talpini, which are like, I don't know, maybe a meter tall at most, but he's got a giant mech suit that he travels around in. And then Marchion, he doesn't have anything except for the access to the paths and his just intimidating demeanor. And
a family legacy, too.
And the family legacy, which we also get into in a later phase. And so the authors have crafted these villains here to give us not the perfect antagonist to the Jedi Order, because that's the Sith, obviously. The Sith are their opposites. But this is a look at a Jedi antagonist that they just can't beat into submission with the Force or a lightsaber. Like, these are just average members of the galaxy. The Jedi obviously prioritize lives, and so they have a very difficult time when facing the Nihil through all of these books.
Yeah, and well, through Light of the Jedi, Rising Storm, and up until what was the third book, Fallen Star, they're almost not even considered a big deal. They're like, oh, did you hear about this Nihil attack over there? Oh yeah, maybe somebody should do something about that. Until it's too late.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And they're so quick, they're so fast that they can't manage them at all. So I know you're a big villain guy. You like Darth Sidious, you like Darth Vader, you like good villains. And so my question to you is, who is your favorite character? But I bet I know who it is.
No, this one's hard to pick too. I mean, Marchion Ro is scary. I mean, he's the big bad, right? He's the, again, has the family heritage that controls the Nihil, but really the one that I kind of like more than that is Lorna D. She's a Twi'lek, and her ship is like rigged to run silently. It reminds me of like a Klingon or something with a cloaking device. But and the Jedi, even towards the end, think that she is the eye of the Nihil. And what, it's been a minute. These were the first books I read, but just all of them. I don't know. There's the other two Tempest Runners. You know, there's four of them. That Marchion is the eye of the Nihil, and then 3 Tempest Runners, and they have this hierarchical structure on how they decide what they're going to do. And the other two guys are just psychopaths.
Yeah, Kosov and Panada.
Kosov and Panada, and to the Nihil's detriment, I think. And then Lorna D is just calculated, cruel for the betterment of the Nihil. That sounds horrible to even talk about because there's bad people, but like Panada and Kosov just don't have any redeeming qualities. As bad as all this stuff is. Right. And then, you know, in a twisted sense, if you want to root for these bad guys and see what they're going to be capable of, these guys aren't going to lead, these Tempest Runners aren't going to lead the Nihil to where they want to be. Lorna D's going to get the job done, and she does. It's cool.
You need to, you've got to listen to Tempest Runner now, because Cavan Scott, the guy who wrote The Rising Storm and the guy who wrote Tempest Runner, loves Lorna D, and that book just pours into that character. She reminds me a lot of Asajj Ventress throughout that book. She's very similar to Ventress. So, favorite character, but I want to know, and this is probably the same answer now, but for Phase 1, for Phase 3, heading from Phase 1, what character are you anxious to get an update about? Like, whose status were you most curious about in Phase 3 before you read The Eye of Darkness?
You know, as far as overall characters, I'm pretty much married to Bel Zettifar. And to see where his path started and to where it's going, to what it's capable of. I mean, when we get to the end of Phase 3, or when we get to the last book of Phase 1, Fallen Star, just so many bad things have happened. And I think you mentioned this in casual conversation, Stellan Gios was one of your favorite characters. Well, no, this is the trial of what, Phase 1, right? I mean, because you get to the end of book 1 and you're like, yeah, Loden Greystorm, let's go.
Yep.
I'm going to see how because he gets captured by the Nihil, right? And we don't know. I kind of envious of reading these books as you did, because you're like, yeah, Loden Greystorm, he's going to kick these Nihil butt. It's going to be great. We're going to see how he rips apart Marchion Ro. And then you go to that second book, and you're like, oh god.
I know. And that second book gets dark too, with the way that they treat Loden, and it's pretty diabolical the way the authors were able to write all of that stuff, and they make you care about so many characters, and so many people die.
So Loden dies in a particularly cruel way. He's how would you describe this?
I'd say he was leveled.
He's turned into a husk.
Yep.
Right, and it's to this diabolical creature called the Leveler, or the Nameless, or
the Shri Karai.
Yeah. There you go, Encyclopedia. Thank you. Shri Karai. Very scary monsters. And here's another thing that we should mention about this monster. I mean, it comes out of left field at the start of the second book, and it leads you down a path that you don't know what it is until it encounters Loden all the way at the other end. And the way... Who wrote this book? I don't want to get it wrong.
Which one? The Rising Storm?
Yes.
Cavan Scott.
Cavan Scott. The way Cavan Scott did this, the way he put these words to paper was horrifyingly scary. And it's too casual to say that the Leveler cuts a Jedi off of the Force. I mean, that's the way it's written. If you're reading, like, what is the Nameless? If you go to the Wikipedia and read that, it cuts a being off from the Force. No, it doesn't. It puts them in this
Nightmare state.
Nightmare
It's like
state.
psychoactive.
Yeah.
I mean, Jedi don't experience fear. They do, but it passes and they know how to manage it, and that's their whole shtick.
Right.
And these creatures throw that concept out the window. The Jedi can't feel anything but fear.
Yeah, it makes them beyond Force crippled to the point to where they're incapable. And then you skip to Fallen Star. And one of these Leveler monsters is on the station, and it's just zapping red shirt Jedi left and right.
Right.
And again, it's this description that Claudia Gray was able to put in there and enhance. And in phase 2, I want to skip ahead. You find out how this Leveler works, and what you realize this doesn't tell you expressly. None of these books tell you expressly but you realize when you go back and you think about, man, you see in phase 2 how these things operate. And he's like, man, Ola Jarini, is that really what happened? And these monsters basically latch on and envelop you. And so that's what these Jedi characters were experiencing. It's horrifying.
It is. And really, when you think about the way that they operate, we don't know this to be completely true, but this has got to be the answer. And the reason that Bell has yet to feel Loden in the Force is that these husks can't connect with the Force. Like, they don't join the Force. All living beings, a blade of grass, when it dies, becomes one with the Force. Its midichlorians become one with the cosmic Force. Well, what I would assume is that the Levelers stop that from happening. They steal the afterlife from the Jedi.
They consume them totally. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, yes, it is. And where did we still don't know where they came from by the end of phase 2, and we just have no idea. And I can't wait to learn more. We know where they come from, literally.
Yeah.
The physical place, but we don't know why they exist. We don't know anything about them. They have to have been created by something for some reason. Like the Force, I would find it hard to believe that the Force even created these beings.
Yeah, it's hard to think of. It reminds me of the Elsamari from the Thrawn trilogy.
Right, exactly. And they can repel midichlorians, and it's like, how can they live without midichlorians? And we don't understand that completely.
Yep.
Same for these creatures. The other interesting thing I'll say about the Leveler while we're on this subject is, given recent revelations from the Ahsoka TV show about how anybody can wield the Force with enough training despite a low midichlorian count, I wonder if the Leveler and the Nameless just ignore people of low midichlorians because it's not worth the meal. It's like if we had a choice between, well, and obviously we have a choice between a steak dinner or a saltine cracker. We're going to eat the steak dinner.
Yeah.
But you talk about, a lot of times in phase 2, it describes the Levelers and the Nameless as like starving, like they can't get to any food because they haven't eaten a Force user.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, if they're starving so much, why aren't they just gobbling up random guy with a few midichlorians? Like, if I'm starving and I can only reach the saltine cracker, I'm going to eat the saltine cracker.
Yeah, those things are beyond scary. They don't stop getting scary all through phase 3 that we've had the privilege to read early. Gosh, phase 1, The Fallen Star, wasn't that such a good book?
Oh, it's a great wrap. Like you said, I loved Loden. Loden was my favorite character. He's who I was like latched onto. He died. I was like, all right, I loved Stellan. I'll be a Stellan guy. He dies at the end of The Fallen Star. And The Fallen Star specifically really stands out to me because they were able to telegraph through the name and through the art on the book that Starlight Beacon was going to fall. And despite you knowing that, and through the very beginning,
all the way to
you're
the end.
still latched on the edge of your seat, like maybe they're going to somehow stop it from falling out of the sky.
So this book frustrated me in the best way possible. And to elaborate on that, the Jedi were impotent the whole time trying to figure out how to save the station.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I feel like this is going to be bad. I don't literally believe this, but I want to believe that if this were a Star Trek crew, they would have figured out how to save the station.
No chance.
Yeah, blasphemy, right? Until after I read the book and I have some time to reflect, one of these leveler monsters or more were in the station, and none of the Jedi had their capabilities. And so I'm not talking about, if I tied you behind your back and said, okay, type me a 1,000-word essay with one hand, you're going to have a hard time. I'm not talking about that. I'm putting a pencil in your mouth. Now type me a 1,000-word essay.
Right.
That's what the Jedi were having to deal with.
Yep.
It's not only that, Jedi are trained and very smart people, and they're capable of doing things. Their brains were being manipulated in a way by this leveler that they were just in this middle fog the whole time.
Right.
That totally disabled them.
If a Jedi's on the top floor of a skyscraper and a leveler's on the bottom floor of a skyscraper, the Jedi is not paralyzed by fear, but they've got brain fog. They are being disturbed. Their connection with the Force is disturbed. They can understand something is wrong, and it's not a disturbance in the Force like you'd feel a dark side user, and they're like, there's this, black vortex in the Force, like Darth Vader. The Nameless and the Levelers mess with their interpretation of the Force. Like, they can't tell about a disturbance because it's not a disturbance. It's not the Force is being weird. It's the Force doesn't exist right here. There's a blockage here. And so it really cripples them, and it's the ultimate weapon against the Jedi. And when the authors set out to write this at the very beginning, if you read a lot of the interviews they've done, or there's a book called Starlight Stories that came out with a lot of information about the inception of the High Republic, one of the prompts that they used was, what is a Jedi afraid of? And that's how they came up with the concept of the Nameless and the Nihil, and this whole story was just that simple question of, what is a Jedi afraid of? And then you can even see that throughout the naming of the different phases and the way that they're laid out, because you have Phase 1 was the Light of the Jedi, Phase 2 is the Quest of the Jedi, and then finally Phase 3 is Trials of the Jedi. 1, trials plural, so they're going to have to overcome multiple things. But 2, we learn how the Jedi overcome the Nihil. We learn how they overcome the Nameless, because we know they do, but it's gonna take a lot. I mean, there's gonna be pounds of flesh and blood to be paid to get through this story. You can already tell. There already has been. There already has been tons. I mean, you have to think about where the Jedi Order is at this time. They're in their peak. The Republic is in its peak. We're talking about the Starlight Beacon. It is a focal point of every story. It is the crowning achievement of the Republic. It's the greatest thing the Republic's essentially ever done, aside from existing. And this locale demonstrates the achievement and the pinnacle of the Order and of the Republic, and the Nihil are able to bring it low, and they're able to bring the Republic into their darkest days since the formation of the Republic. I mean, the Clone War is worse than this, but before the Clone War, this is the worst thing that the Republic and the Jedi Order have had to face since the Republic was formed.
Yeah. And it's horrifying. And in the Rising Storm, the Nihil attack, they're having an all-Republic fair on
Valo.
On Valo, yeah, that's right. And the Nihil attack and almost kill the Chancellor, kill probably tens of thousands of people when we get right down to it. I mean, and this is like, you talk about the crown achieving, the Nihil spit on it, and not for like, they're not terrorists. They're not doing it to enact political change. They're doing it just because. Right.
They are. And so, in Star Wars, the very first Star Wars movie was centered around, the whole plot centered around the space station. The whole plot centered around the Death Star. We now get this entire first phase, this first story. This is the A New Hope of the High Republic, and it's focused around a space station. And so I thought that the way that they've juxtaposed the Death Star to Starlight Beacon, not literally, they're not making comparisons. The Death Star is not going to be around for another 200 years. But the way that the two can be compared by fans of Star Wars in showing the heights the Empire achieved by building the Death Star, no matter what, it's an achievement. It's just a very malicious and evil achievement, versus the heights the Republic could achieve, and both of them being taken down, is really a testament to just the hubris that both of these organizations can hold, and the Republic getting too cocky. The Jedi are aware that they're in their prime. The Jedi and the Republic knows that there's nothing that really contends with them. The Hutts are out there, and there's some pirates and stuff, but they're just, nothing can stop them until they hit this brick wall of the Nihil.
Yeah, and it's so scary, just what they're capable of. And again, we've read the first book of Phase 3. It just gets worse.
It does. So we talked about the diversity of Jedi. You know, there's even a Jedi in the High Republic Adventures. You know, the Parwans, the fungus people that float and have 8 arms. He wields 8 lightsabers.
Oh, cool.
It looks so cool. But there's a lot of diversity besides that among non-Jedi characters and non-Nihil characters. We have a really good supporting cast of regular people. You've got the Chancellor, Lena So.
Yes.
She is, I mean, we see Valorum in the Phantom Menace, and he's absolutely just, he's a terrible chancellor. He gets voted out. Then Palpatine is not a model chancellor by any means. And we know Mon Mothma struggles. Those are the 3 chancellors we've gotten to see. And now we get Lena So, who is like, if you have a government, you want her in charge of it. She is a very effective leader and a really interesting character.
Yeah, she's so capable, and she just does what's right. I mean, pure-hearted. She's just a Jedi without force powers. It gets right down to it. Essentially, she is. But a lot of and this is mainly in the Eye of Darkness, but we do get to explore her character a little bit. And we do. It's always important to remember that the Jedi's moral code, one, they don't impose it on others. They don't expect other beings to follow their no emotions code. And 2, it's not a way to live for most people. It's only a way for Jedi to live. And we see Lena So not grapple with that, but kind of postulate on that for a minute. Yeah, she has to fall within the cracks of that or something almost kind of.
And then we have, there's a lot of other really good, other supporting characters. You have, I'm really blanking on her name. She's the reporter at the Valo Fair.
Real Dio.
Real Dyro. She's great. And you have the whole crew of the Vessel, which is the space, the civilian ship.
Yeah, the Fallen Star.
In the Fallen Star, and it's got Leox Jossi and
Yes.
Geode.
Yes,
Favorite
Geode has to be
dude.
one of the coolest characters.
I feel like he only works in literature, but he works, man. He looks so good. He's a great character.
If they're going to make, maybe he's in this.
In the Acolyte?
No, in the Young Jedi.
Oh yeah, he needs to be.
He'll
in the
be
Young
in the
Jedi.
background. He'll just appear here
Of every shot, every single frame. He's in the background.
I mean, there's no reason why Leox Jossi and his crew couldn't be there.
Oh, they should show up. I think that'd be really easy to show up, especially with that red-headed girl who's not a Jedi in the Young Jedi Adventures. She would be a really natural place for them.
They don't need names. They just need to exist in the background.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, we're going to talk about that because they are introducing multiple High Republic characters into the Young Jedi Adventures, and it's been exciting so far. I mean, I haven't been watching the Young Jedi Adventures, but I'm gonna watch the episodes that the High Republic characters show up in. So we've talked a lot about how Phase 1 has been this giant culminating event and tied together all of these different aspects. We didn't even touch on the Dren gear, which I don't know how familiar you are with the Dren gear.
As far as the books goes, it was just one mention at the start of Rising Storm, and then it fell off, and I'm sure it goes into the comics.
It is it's essentially the plot line of the High Republic self-titled comics, where the Hutts and the Jedi have to team up to fight the Dren gear, and the Dren gear have a tie to the Sith. To the Sith Order. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
And so they're a really interesting story, but it's just all of this stuff is coming to a head, and you have to think, not that there's outside forces at work like this is some Sith plan like Palpatine, because that's another thing I really like about these books that we've already mentioned, is that there is a distinct lack of Sith. There are Sith. There are 2 Sith at this time. As we know, there are always 2 Sith, and they're doing something. They're probably really relishing all of this, but we don't know where they are or what they're doing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But other than the Dren gear, other than the Nihil, there's another group that has been really good villains. And so let's start talking about Phase 2 in earnest here. So you only did the adult novels for Phase 1, but you did the YAs plus the adult novels for Phase 2, which I think was a great idea, because I thought the YAs were the better part of Phase 2. They're all good. There's not really a stinker among any of these books, but I thought the young adult novels kind of inform you better for going into Phase 3. And so Do you think that you're going to take a look back at the comic books at some point?
Yeah.
You do? You do? Because
I
think the
I
Phase
need the
2
books,
comics
the
are
big books.
also...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they just came out with the Phase 1 Omnibus, too. The
Okay,
comic
I want
Omnibus.
that,
So you
yeah.
should grab that. But if we're talking Phase 2, I've got to just lay out the reasons that it's my favorite of the two phases. Which one's your favorite phase?
Man, they're both good. I don't like being pinned down on these things. They're good for their own reasons.
I understand. I get it. I understand.
Gosh, you're gonna hold a gun to my head. Probably Phase 2 also.
Okay, cool. Because I loved Phase 2 for a lot of reasons.
It feels like the Wild Frontier.
It does, and that's exactly why I liked it so much. It feels more ancient. Feels not ancient, but older. It feels old because the galaxy, the unexplored galaxy, is a really interesting setting to me.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're doing an exploration setting for our RPG that we do for this podcast over on Patreon, and the reasons that we're doing that story is because of how appealing it is for the Star Wars galaxy to be unexplored, because it's just infinite possibilities out there. The prospector teams and the navigation teams that they send out in the galaxy are all really cool and really interesting during this time period. They make a lot of sense setting up all those hyperspace beacons. But I also liked the Path better than the Nihil as a whole as villains. I like Marchion as the main villain better than I like the Mother as the main villain. But as an organization, I like what the Path does better than the Nihil, because I think the Path are more interesting antagonists to the Jedi.
Yeah, they have that air of normalcy. In a sense, a lot of people consider them a cult, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
Because a gift freely given, right?
Yeah.
They sound so innocent.
They do. And they seem innocent in the first book. So I also just love seeing the Force and religion stuff. We spend a long time on Jeddah and in the Holy City, and I thought those were amazing set pieces. Getting to read all of the stuff happening on Jeddah and also playing all of the Jeddah stuff in Jedi Survivor has made that one of my favorite planets really quickly.
Yeah.
It's
too bad it's blown to
super
pieces.
cool setting. It is too bad it's blown to pieces. And Luke Skywalker visits it in the comic books after it's been blown up, and it's just cratered, and he doesn't go down to the surface, but it's just molten magma core spewing out of this broken up planet. And there's a Jedi with a shield in Phase 2, which is just crazy. That's another huge reason to love Phase 2.
Yeah, what was her name?
Man, you totally put me on the spot. I don't remember what her name was.
Well, okay. While
I
you're
will
doing
find that here right
now. So Phase 2, gosh, it feels, so there's two main stories. One is basically, I don't want to say origin of the Path of the Open Hand, but it's like the reader's introduction to them. Mm-hmm. And then the other half is Iram and Arano. It is basically what the novels are about.
Right.
What is it? Convergence and Cataclysm.
Which we don't have any kind of real familiarity with Iram and Arano, except that is where the Starlight Beacon had crashed.
Iram is where Starlight Beacon crashes. And so if I had to pick, I really liked the past stories more than the Iram and Arano stories.
I agree.
But I mean, we're talking margins here, splitting hairs, right? Because
Salandra Show is the name of the shield-wielding Jedi.
Yeah. Gosh, she was cool. She feels like Captain America Jedi.
Yeah, she does.
Of course, America is not a concept. This is a galaxy far, far away, but still. Just the Path. So it's a scam organization brought about by the Mother, right? Mm-hmm. And she's just basically, what is it? David Koresh? She's some sort of weirdo.
Yeah,
not necessarily a weirdo, but
she's a cult leader, but she doesn't believe in the cult that she's leading. Yeah, like she's not a religious zealot.
She's actively duping her followers.
Yes. But she latched onto this organization. This was an organization that existed before she came around with the Herald. He was running the show, and these are people that sincerely believed. And then she shows up with all her visions and saying she believes this, and the wolves pulled over their eyes completely.
Yeah. And for all intents and purposes, until she shows up, they're just this peaceful little on Dio. What planet are they on?
Dalna.
Dalna, yeah.
Dio is the one from Kenobi.
Yeah, that's right. And Dalna, and peaceful, I say. I mean, but they're just farmers. They're not really hurting anybody until she shows up and makes her the children of the path, and they're going to steal out in the galaxy to steal Force artifacts. And the little story just about them is really cool. But the crux of this is it's established in Martero, and what's her cousin's name?
Yana
Rho. And they are of the species Everini.
Which is super cool. The description of the Everini, I was like, wow, this is
black
awesome.
hair, gray skin with black eyes, sharp teeth, and sharp fingernails. Right. And they're despised. It doesn't really give express reasons, but I mean, they're just despised across the galaxy.
They're just seen as dangerous, deceitful.
Yeah,
like
for no apparent reason, but probably for a good reason.
Sure, yeah. There's some galactic history here that we don't know about.
And so it doesn't say it, but their last name is Rho, and these are the ancestors of Marcion Rho.
Yes, yeah.
And so the whole time you're reading these, you're like, what motive? Because what happens here motivates Marcion in the future. And the events portrayed in this phase 2, the path hates the Jedi. And it's such a crazy concept. I'm reading the events that took place in Path of Deceit. I'm like, what? What in the world? So she meets Martero meets Kevmo, and he moves a flower to her, basically to flirt with her.
Right.
And she loses her mind. You can't manipulate the Force.
Right.
Da-da-da-da-da. And the Path of the Open Hand believes that if an individual manipulates the Force, if they take from the Force takes from somewhere else to make up for it.
Yes, exactly.
And causes some sort of negative consequence.
And, dear listener, they have no justification for this. In
Yes.
none of the books is it ever said why they think this, other than it just was a thought somebody had one day.
There was one thing, and that it was one of those really twisted words. I need this book to find it. I can't really
Is it in
scroll
Deceit
back.
or Vengeance? I have Deceit. I don't have
I
Vengeance.
want to say it's in...
I mean, you can flip through
I
Deceit
want to
if
say
you
it's
want.
in the Battle of Jeddah, even.
Oh, well, you can flip through the Battle of Jeddah if you want.
The Herald gives some sort of analogy that had to do with the tree. You know, do you think a tree would like having it? The fruit of a tree is intended for it to reproduce. And if you consume the fruit of a tree, it never gets the opportunity to reproduce.
That's not even true. You eat the seeds and you poop the seeds out.
Exactly right. This is, in literal science, this is what's called an ecosystem. You know?
Right.
But when you're a twisted cult leader, I'm not saying it makes sense, but to these numbskulls, it does.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. It does. I mean, but that's why if you hear that analogy in universe, your answer needs to be, yeah, it does.
Aren't you insane?
That just means that the Herald doesn't know science. That just means the Herald's not a biologist.
Well, but I mean, we're talking about the Force here, right?
Right. We don't know. We don't know how the Force works either.
I'm pretty
but
sure
they are wrong.
Yeah, they are wrong. You know, it gets into other deep-seated philosophical predestination. You know, if I do good in the world, just do good stuff.
Yep.
And if you're going around stealing Force artifacts and lying about it, you're not doing good stuff.
That's right. And so, like you said, Path of Deceit and Path of Vengeance are the story of the Path of the Open Hand. And these stories all tie together. It's one long narrative, but you don't really see that till the very end. The last book's where you see it all tie together. And it only kind of ties together. But the Path of the Open Hand start out with these blue squiggles across their forehead. I loved the narrative device. Yeah, 3 blue squiggles across their forehead. The Nihil symbol is 3 red lightning bolts in a vertical pattern. And you just kind of see that transformation through these books, and it's really, really neat to see. But I was thinking we were going to get a little bit more intro to the Nihil in these books, but I was happy we didn't, honestly, because it left me with more questions.
Yeah, well, this is opportunity for a comic book or some sort of reflection in the future. Because I'm getting towards the end of Path of Vengeance. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see the epilogue on this. And little Marcion, you know. Because, like, what is this? In The Sopranos, there was a movie that came out last couple of years. And it's got Tony Soprano as and Christopher,
the many saints of Newark.
Yeah, the many saints, and Christopher Moltisanti's a baby, and so it's like this passing of the torch type thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the pass of the torch, and we didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it too, and I bet we'll get a lot of description in Phase 3 about it. I mean, this is, I guess, a little bit. People are saying we didn't get our answers answered in the Eye of Darkness. So if you're looking at the Eye of Darkness for those answers, then you're going to need to read the second and third book probably. Yeah. But we really, really enjoyed getting to explore the story this way and getting to look at Phase 2 through the lens of the way that the Path of the Open Hand develops. But the other part of the story is this love story, Romeo and Juliet war between Iram and Arano, two neighboring planets in the same system, and how their two leaders have to come together. And there's another character in the book, and he's just awesome. I think he's a great character. He's not a good person, but he's a well-written character, and Axel Greylark.
Yes.
He's super interesting. He's kind of like Lando, but way worse of a person. He's like if Lando never got good.
He's Lando's mirror. Yep.
Yeah, and he's just super interesting. He's out for himself, but he's working for this mother character who just seems to have a hold and ties into this story a lot.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those where he's a hyper-privileged. He's the son of the Chancellor, and I forget the name of that character.
Keon Greylark.
And
one of two Chancellors. There's two Chancellors here. And it's Keon Greylark and another one who I'm blanking on his name.
He's a Pantoran.
He's a Quarren. No, he's Quarren.
Oh, Quarren.
Yeah,
one of the tentacle-faced aliens.
Yes. Yeah. Squid aliens.
Yep. And that whole concept of having two Chancellors was really fun. The
Malo.
Yeah, Chancellor Malo.
Yeah.
And Malo's the diplomat and
goes out, never is on Coruscant, always out in the Outer Rim.
Yeah, Greylark is like home base diplomat, kind of managing the senators, I guess. And Axel is the he's the crappy. He's the boss's kid.
Yeah. Well, he's referred to a lot of times, and by the mother specifically, as the Chaos.
Yeah.
And that's because he's really just an exceptionally selfish person. Like, he's not got, I mean, Axel's pretty much, he is evil because of how selfish he is. Like, it's just black and white. This guy's a terrible person. But he's so compelling because you like him so much. He's just so charismatic and such a jerk. I mean, he's like, what is that? He's a real person. Jordan Belfort. He reminds me a lot of the character of Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street. Maybe not the real person. I don't know anything about the real Jordan Belfort, but in The Wolf of Wall Street, he's like that guy.
Even the Jedi he's interacting with, do you remember her name?
Yeah, Ada Forte.
Ada Forte. I thought it was a different one.
It's not Ada Forte. No. Golly, you keep putting me on the spot.
There's so many characters here.
I know. It's
hard.
A lot.
It's really
I'm
hard.
normally really good with the names, but...
And as you're reading these books, it's easy to keep track. But as you're trying to host a podcast and...
Well, and I haven't read this book in nearly a year at this point. I'll find her name also.
Yeah. But she's not, what's the right word? Smitten with him. She's disarmed by him.
Gelanatai.
Yeah. She's a really cool Jedi. She has two lightsabers, and at one time, one of the lightsabers is taken by Axel, and she's able to find him because the two crystals wanting to be around each other.
Right.
Very cool.
And one of the reasons I think she's so disarmed by Axel is she's struggling at the beginning of this story because she wants to be a Wayfinder, but she doesn't feel like she's got a great place in the Jedi Order, and she's nervous about not being a Wayfinder. She doesn't want to be relegated to what a normal Jedi does. She doesn't feel comfortable doing the day-to-day diplomatic work. She feels like the Force is calling her to do something else, but she hasn't done that. So she's really conflicted at the beginning of this book, and it allows Axel to kind of worm his way in there.
Yep.
But that's another reason I really liked Phase 2 a lot, was because I felt like they're supporting characters. There's less Jedi in Phase 2, which isn't something that I like or dislike. It's just as a fact. But there's more supporting characters that are not Force sensitive, and they're all pretty good. They're all really interesting. Ziri Albaran and her love interest, what is his name? Now I'm blanking on his name.
Goodness gracious.
Anyway,
don't look at me for any of that stuff.
Don't ask you any of the names. But all of both of the royals for Iram and Arano, and the chancellors and Axel, and all of these people. Tay Sarek in the comic books, you didn't really get to see. You saw a little bit of them in the Path of Vengeance, but all of these characters are just home runs, and they're all really interesting.
They really are, and they craft such a wonderful story. You know, Iram and Aranor, they call it the Forever War, but they've only been at war for 5 years. But I guess it's pretty brutal because, you know, war is not a casual thing in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
The technology is such that, you know, really decisive, you know, not nuclear weapons or anything, but towards the end in, I don't know if it's Cataclysm or Path of Vengeance, the Path of the Open Hand, as directed by the Mother, is enlisting bioweapons to destroy Arano.
Yeah. No, everything's super brutal
and blame it on
and you know, ramped up to the top. Yeah, she wants to exacerbate this fight because she hates the Jedi. Fontu Zin is the Prince of Iram, by the way.
Yeah, Fontu Zin. Okay. The way I gathered from across Convergence and Cataclysm was that, who was it? The Mother was provide material support for one of them. I want to say Iram. And she sent him the bill, and the one of the queens is like, I'm not paying that.
Right.
We're under peace now. You can get nothing from me. And so she's just like, she is going after Iram and Arano out of spite.
Yes. Yeah, she's very spiteful.
She wants them to keep fighting so that she can provide stuff to them.
Well, we learned that the reason all 5 of these books exist, the reason the Battle of Jedha happens, the reason the snowball that starts the Nihil is all because the Mother is... And this is, look, if you haven't read Phase 2, this is just the spoiler for the whole phase. So
yeah.
Don't turn us off right now if you haven't heard Phase 2 and want to not be spoiled. But the Mother's just mad that her sister got picked to be a Jedi and she didn't. The Mother is, you know, tenuously Force sensitive. She's got Force sensitivity, but not at the level that the Jedi Order were accepting when they were in their prime. So we can assume the Mother is leaps and bounds ahead of someone like Sabine, but she's obviously way far behind just your average run-of-the-mill Kanan Jarrus Jedi.
And she's got some unique gifts. She can be told stuff. What would you say that her capability is? Like, she can reach out, she can find where these Force artifacts are. I don't know necessarily that she can predict the future, but she knows things.
She can prophesy somewhat. I mean, not on the level that Yoda or Sidious could, but she can certainly, you know, peer into and see many timelines and most likely outcomes and things like that. But she just does all of this out of spite because her sister got picked to be a Jedi and she didn't, which is nuts. I know some people were a little disappointed with that reveal. I honestly really liked it. I was like, this is pretty interesting.
I was mouth agape when I heard it. Because she's confronted by her sister.
Yes, yeah, who the Jedi, and she is like searching and she's like, nah, I can't believe it. And then she's there. There's also a lot of characters that are side characters in Phase 2 that return in a big way in Phase 3. And that's all I'm going to say on that. But there's a Jedi and a Path of the Open Hand member who they are both really, really neat.
Really neat.
And it's really exciting. And there's even in the comic books, there's some adversaries that make their return. So if you're sleeping on Phase 2, please don't, because it really is worth it.
Yeah, I had so much fun, you know, seeing, because like I said, you're introduced to the path, and by the end, they're the path of the closed fist. So you see this de-evolution into what the Nihil is, and of course, we've already mentioned we want to see more of like that transition of power. But to go from, you know, a seemingly peaceable thing to this horrible, horrifying thing is, to watch that take place is so fun.
It is. And I know some people who aren't going to be reading Phase 2 and wanted to jump right into Phase 3 because they loved Phase 1 and its characters so much that they didn't want to have to go back. But I just want to say, why are you a Star Wars fan then? I mean, it went 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. It's the same thing.
Here's another thing. I think it's in Path of Vengeance. Yaddle is in there.
Yeah. And she's big. She's huge in Cataclysm.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Cataclysm. I don't know if she's in... Is that? No, you're right. It's Path of Vengeance. It is Path of Vengeance, yeah.
And then Yoda doesn't have a big role in any of this stuff, but he's there, and it's cool to see his insights. But because he spans both the phases.
Right.
And, gosh.
There's a couple other prequel Jedi that show up in Phase 1. Oppo Rancisis and Yarl Poof are all on the council still.
Okay.
At that time, which is really neat. I mean, it's just, you know, if you're a long-lived species, getting to see that continuity between... Because Yoda is really, I mean, for not a casual Star Wars fan, because if you're reading The High Republic, you're a little beyond casual. But for a Star Wars fan who wants to be getting into books and wants to have a little bit of connective tissue between the movies, if they start on the High Republic, Yoda's the only one that they're going to recognize, I think.
Right.
I mean, if you're a casual fan, you're not going to recognize Opa Rancisis and Jarl Poof.
Yeah, he's on the cover of one of the comic books. I think I have that one. Somebody gave it to me.
Well, he plays not a big role in Phase 2, but a linchpin role in Phase 2 because a lot of people are really upset with him. Like, I've seen a lot of people drag Yoda on Twitter because he covers up the nameless. He, says that until we understand it, we're not going to just let everybody know about it. And he helps with Creighton's son cover it up. I want to know, do you think Yoda will be justified in doing this or redeemed in some way in Phase 3? Or do you think this is just a big... Because there are people out there who blame Yoda for the fall of the Jedi Order and the inception of the Clone War. I don't like to do that because Yoda's one man. Just because he's the Grand Master does not mean that the buck stops with him on the whole Jedi Order. But, because that's not how they work. He's not like the supreme leader of the Jedi Order. But do you think it's likely that we're going to get a Yoda mistake chalked up in Phase 3, or do you think they're going to be able to justify our boy?
Man, I don't want to answer this because we're not allowed to reveal what happens in Phase 3. So, I mean, there's too much. I have too much thoughts that would tip my hand on this.
Okay,
So
I understand. Can't hold your cards
next time.
Tune in next week. Yeah, we can talk about it some more next week. I'll raise the question again.
Yeah, I really do. The Phase 3, go watch our YouTube video that Carter so graciously made because I'm too busy. But a quick preview from my perspective, the snowballs that are pushed down the hill in Phase 3 are insanely cool. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have so much fun. As much as we talk about the first two phases, we're going to talk as much about one book in Phase 3.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And it makes me, I wish that we had been doing this for the other books, but we hadn't been really podcasting when they've been coming out, only for a couple of them. And middle of Phase 2 wouldn't have been a good place to start.
No, this is the best way that we could have done this.
It is. It's the same as our Andor conversation coming in behind. It's still fun. We're still having a great time talking about it. So, like I said, we see some Phase 2 characters pop up in Phase 3. Who is your favorite Phase 2 character?
Oh, God. The Jedi we mentioned with the double sabers.
Oh, yeah. Galanati.
Galanati. I really liked her.
Okay.
Because she spanned both the IRAM and Arano sequence and the other stuff.
The Path of Vengeance. Yeah. I really liked, again, in the trend of characters getting killed as soon as you like them, Kevmo Zink. At the beginning of Path of Deceit, I was like, oh, yeah, this is our guy. Cool. I was like, oh, we're going to follow Kevmo Zink. Neat name. He's a Pantoran with a yellow lightsaber. Really liking all this. Dead.
Yeah. And dead in a very cruel and gross way.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say Axel's probably my favorite character. Yes. He was super interesting. He was really well written. I thought that they just did the best with him.
Reading all these little books, Porter Angle wasn't in any of these. And he's supposed to be, 200 years old? I was hoping he'd pop up in this. Is he in like a comic book?
The Blade. Then? The Blade is about him.
Okay.
Yeah, it is his story. He is the Blade of Bardota, is his name during Phase 1, and so the Blade is about him.
I blanked out. He's my favorite character of all of this stuff.
Yeah, I knew that. I was curious why you didn't mention him.
And I haven't even read the Blade comic book.
Oh, you're going to eat it
I'm going to take it home. I'm stealing it from you after this.
You need to take it home. It's good. It's very good. I really liked it, and it informs some more of Phase 3, which it kind of, when you're reading it, so when it first came out, I was like, well, that was a neat story, but it doesn't really tie into anything. Like, it's very standalone in the Phase. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of Phase 2, but it informs 3. And there's a sequel comic to it coming out called The Broken Blade that's been teased, but we don't know when it's coming out yet. So, Colin, we've kind of covered both the phases, but now I'm here to ask you a couple of predictions. Okay? So, do you think we're going to see any Sith of any kind in Phase 3? Not as a main antagonist, not as the main bad guy, but, if they encounter a Jedi, the Jedi has to die. To justify the lines in The Phantom Menace, the Jedi will have to die, so the Order is not aware of the Sith. But do you think we'll get any kind of check-in or mention in an epilogue or something about just a flashpoint, who the Darth was, what they thought about these events?
I don't think so. I'm total speculation, but I'm holding out hope that they do some sort of other projects, maybe similar to this, that that delves into that a little bit. That's not that, I don't want to take anything away from Marcion Rowe's story. I don't want to take anything from Elzar Mann's story and Belzettifar's, and I think it just throw a wrench into the thing.
Okay. So next prediction. It's kind of related. And this is, you're going to be scratching your head on why I'm asking you this question. I'll explain it. But do you think that the High Republic, the overarching story through the 3 phases, is related to the Chosen One prophecy?
No.
Now, let me tell you why I'm asking that question, because I think you might change your mind after I tell you. So, in Master and Apprentice, the book about Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, before the Phantom Menace, it's mainly about Qui-Gon and his obsession with the prophecies, not just the Chosen One prophecy, but prophecies in general, and how he's puts a lot of credence in them. And so in that book, Claudia Gray wrote a prophecy, and that book came out around the time when the High Republic project started getting planned. And so I'm going to read you the Chosen One prophecy, and then you tell me if you think it's related or not. Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored.
Well, I mean, that's pretty obvious, right?
Kind of, right? Like, maybe. It says the nameless. It's not capitalized. It's not like a proper noun like it is in the High Republic. And some people say that these are just 2 prophecies kind of run together. Some fans speculate that. Yeah. But I kind of feel like the High Republic, at the end of this, the end of Phase 3, when we're at the very end, they're going to say, now see, this is when the Jedi Order begins to fall. Is whatever the Jedi do to get rid of the nameless, whether it's make the species go extinct, glass the planet that they're from, whatever they do was bad enough that the Force is now in peril and Anakin must bring it back into balance. And all of it started back then.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, well, I'm hoping it's the case, because I think that would be one that adds a ton of weight to the High Republic project. Not that it doesn't stand on its own 2 legs as just a phenomenal story, but it really wraps it into the whole Star Wars mythos and makes the events of this story feel extremely weighty.
Yeah, it really does. I never actually heard the prophecy or anything like that. I haven't read that book. So
yeah. Oh, it's a good book. You should definitely check that book out too. It's pretty good.
As far as the nameless goes, they're a force without opposition almost, and with no answer. And it's exactly like you just said. However, they put a stop to it. I mean, because they have to, right? I mean, and again, going back to what I said earlier, how are they going to write this thing to stop this thing? The only thing I can think of is like the RDC troops shoot it to death. But like that's so basic.
Well, and there's so many of them. Like, it's not just, I mean, even if they stop the threat of the Nihil and they're nameless, there's a whole planet full of these.
Right.
And the Jedi don't know about this planet yet. I think they do know about it at the end of Phase 1, maybe, but they are essentially unaware of all of this. And so they're going to have to be able to deal with it somehow. They're going to have to be able to do something, and it's going to be really, really interesting for us to get to see what they're able to do with it beyond that.
Yeah.
And so there's another book coming out. Obviously, there's 2 more adult novels coming out after The Eye of Darkness. We already know that. And there's a lot of other stuff coming out, and everyone needs to check it out. Between The Eye of Darkness and Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gratton, which is going to be the 2nd adult novel, there will be another novel come out by John Jackson Miller, set 1 year before The Phantom Menace. And when you see the Jedi in Phase 1, they're all over the galaxy. They got outposts everywhere. They got temples everywhere. Well, this book, taking place right before Phase 1, or right before The Phantom Menace, is about the Jedi Council shutting down one of the last Jedi outposts. And just kind of this is the beginning of the end of the Golden Age, and that is the very last snuffing out of the Golden Age, the year before The Phantom Menace. And that book we're really excited about. I hope that it'll lend some clues to that prophecy and how it connects.
Yeah, me too.
I think it may.
That sounds way fun.
I think it may. I also cannot believe this phase is going to be, it's not going to be really long. I think it's as long as phase 1 was, but we don't get to read the last adult novel until spring of 2025.
Oh my goodness.
Which is super disappointing. I'm going to be bummed out by that. But in the meantime, I'll be reading everything else that they're releasing.
Yeah, and we're gonna report on it all here. Cover each individual book. I mean, they're too easy to listen to. They're fun to read. I mean, and we're both caught up.
Yeah, no, we're there. We're going to be reading them together now.
Comics to read.
Yep.
But
yeah.
I mean,
you'll plow through those.
Yeah,
they're good. I mean, they're all good, so you'll enjoy them. But Colin, other than that, what are your closing thoughts on the first 2 phases of the High Republic?
So I had a lot of fun. Again, if there's anything negative to say, it's in the very slightest of sense. I read a lot of science fiction books. I'm plowing through the Horus Heresy. I've read a ton of Asimov. I've read a ton of this, read a ton of that. And these chapters, maybe it's a symptom of me listening to them so fast, but the chapters are really short.
Oh, no, it's not you listening to them too fast. They're short chapters. The Eye of Darkness chapters were like, I read it physically, like some of them are like 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah. And so ends up being like 60-something chapters. And I'm going to liken this to a gas gauge. The first like 30 chapters, the needle moves the plot a millimeter. So like this chapter is how about Elzar is sad. This chapter is how about Bell is sad. This chapter is about this, and then it like falls off a cliff towards the end. Mm-hmm. And every single one of these books is that way. And so, like other books I read, there's like, 5 different stories going on, and this chapter is about maybe something big happens at the first, and then the second chapter covers 2 stories. The third chapter covers these other, and they're both like 30 pages apiece or something like that. You're bouncing, moving the story in these grandiose ways and all these other things, and these characters doing all this other stuff throughout the whole book. All these events are happening. And in this, it's a slight criticism. These books are super easy to read, and they're fun. By the end of it, you've forgotten about the needle moving so slow.
These books feel to me more like they're pretty cinematic. The books feel cinematic because it feels like when they bounce through those chapters, because I leveled the exact same criticism in the spoiler-free review on YouTube. But I think it's because the books are so cinematic that it's almost like it's scene changes. Like they're not doing the same events in the same chapter because a chapter is a scene, essentially.
Right.
And I mean, I can't think of many instances. I mean, maybe a jump through hyperspace, but that's it, where the chapters start at a point and end at a point that are different. Like they're all like one room, one interaction. It'd be, if this was on TV, it'd be a scene.
Yep.
And so that's, I think, a little bit why that is the way it is.
But I mean, other than that, that's the only criticism I can really think of. So as far as positive goes, the characters are very enthralling in what they do and what they're capable of. The settings across everywhere is so fantastic. I mean, it's Star Wars, right? Part of the allure of this universe is that you can go to all these different worlds and have all of these experiences. And that is the exact same thing with these novels, right? And in kind of a relieving way, you're not shackled to some sort of Skywalker story here. You're not on the periphery of that. This is actual Greylark, what he's doing over here, and then you switch over to Yoda and then Yaddle and what they're doing over here. Yaddle's, she's having to babysit this hyper talented youngling, and just to see that is way cool. And then like the journey and something that was so fun. Oh, I really love Loading Greatstorm, Kathunk. Oh, I really love Stellan Geos, Kathunk. Oh, I really love this person.
Yeah, and over, it just kept happening. I did. It's funny how, because it's 3 books is not like a lot of story. Like 3 books is a big story, but it's not just, you said you're reading the Horus Heresy. That's 62 books, right? But the authors do such a good job of making you care about these characters so quickly. Like yes. I cared about Bell and Loden like a quarter of the way into the first book. Like it's just, and that's not always the case in a lot of books that I read. And so the way that they're able to make you care so much and then immediately kill them off It's very interesting. I just can't believe that they're going to kill Bell off in Phase 3.
No!
That is not a spoiler for the Eye of Darkness, by the way.
No, it's not.
That's a joke. Hopefully, it might not be.
No.
It may or may not be. But I'm really happy that you're reading them. I think our listeners are going to be happy that you read them because this was a fun conversation, and we're going to get to be talking about the High Republic a lot more. Like we said, next week we're going to get to talk about the Eye of Darkness, and I'm just really, really excited to get cracking on it.
Yeah. I mean, again, not only that Eye of Darkness, but everything that comes after this, going back and reading the comics, and you're doing a huge disservice if you don't read Phase 2. I even texted Carter. I'm like, I want to find out what happens with this character. Do I have to read this Phase 2? And I'm so glad I did. I'm so happy just to be part of the story and have all of these characters. I was really excited about seeing Bell Zettifar loading in the stories because I haven't read the comics. I haven't done any in the Young Jedi to seeing what I had in my mind's eye of these characters be what it was.
Yeah, it was exciting. It's been a fun time. It's going to be a fun ride. Phase 3 is going to be great. Like you said, we're going to be covering it all of next year. I mean, we're going to cover it next week, and then all of next year, any opportunity we have, we're going to be talking about the newest High Republic thing because they're just going to keep cranking them out.
Yep.
So we now are going to hop into our patron-powered segment, which is How the Force Works.
That's not how the Force works.
All right, Colin, How the Force Works, for you new listeners, this is our patron-powered segment where our Patreon supporters get to ask us a question. We answer it here on the show. This question comes from Patreon subscriber Loaf. Loaf, you asked, is the world between worlds pretty much the same as the multiverse in Marvel? The short answer is no. Colin, what's the long answer?
Oh my gosh. Do we really need to get into this?
We got to talk about it. A bunch of people, I mean, it's not a bad question because so many people think this. And it's really easy to think that the world between worlds is a multiverse or it is a time machine. But it's not. And Dave's on the record saying it's not.
So the world between worlds is the room requirement from Harry Potter. It's only going to let you in when you need it. It's only going to put you where you need to be.
There's much theories about what it is. We don't literally know what it is, but we know what it's not. We know it's not a time machine. We know it's not a multiverse. To say it's not a multiverse, one, there's a real world explanation in that they're not getting rid of the sequels. They're not getting rid of anything that you might not like in Star Wars. It's here to stay. And so they're not going to use it as a tool to do that. And so the time travel and the multiverse answer for in-universe is if you pick up the Star Wars Timelines book, you'll see that the event where Ahsoka gets pulled out during the fight on Malachor was always going to happen. That's not like Ezra created another timeline. There was one timeline where Ahsoka died on Malachor, and there was one not in every timeline, because there's only one. So in the timeline, she gets pulled out, and she has to go back into the Malachor portal. She doesn't go through a different portal. She doesn't go into another part of the universe. She didn't travel through space and time. She went in the same door, came out of the same door, just at the same time. After Vader fell through the floor, she survived because he had already fallen through the floor. Time was still moving linearly there.
Right.
And so it is much more, not physical, because it is mystical and spiritual and all of these things together, but it exists in time and space somehow. It is between time and space, essentially. We've done a lot of digging and tried to do a lot of research to inform our world between world analysis, as I think any good Star Wars content creator should. And if you go back and look at Season 6 of the Clone Wars, in the Yoda arc, where he learns to become a Force Ghost, the Force Priestesses say they exist in the world between realms. Which, again, essentially to me means we know the Force is the energy that connects and binds the universe. So the world between worlds is just this physical manifestation of the Force. It's where Force Ghosts exist, but they also exist in the ether. It's a way for characters and individuals in the Star Wars universe to engage with the Force in a more material way when they need to. Like Colin said, when the Force wants that to be done, that's how they do it. We've leaned on this a lot. We speculate that the cave on Dagobah, Luke entered the world between worlds there because Dave said in the first season of Rebels, when Ezra sees Yoda, gets his first lightsaber crystal, and talks to him, it's just a black void. It's because Ezra is not strong enough in the Force to interpret it as the world between worlds yet and see the full picture.
Right.
We can assume the same of Luke in The Empire Strikes Back. He doesn't have the training, but he does have this vision and this encounter with Vader in the cave. There's no reason that this encounter and vision in the cave, which we know was facilitated by the Force, was not facilitated through the world between worlds. We just are seeing it from Luke's perspective, which is a limited vision.
And so I really don't have anything to add to that. All that's really deep and insightful and spot on. And I just want to say in the more practical sense is Jedi have been around for 25,000 years. Up until the fall, the Jedi had 1,000 years apiece. The Empire is around for 20 years, roughly, right? 27
Yeah,
years.
just a little bit more than that. But
The
not
First
much.
Order was around for 2. They're a speed bump. So you can want a retcon, you can want Han Solo back, you can want your character you don't like to go away or something to be different. You're being kind of silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a speed bump in time. And I mean, I just laid out what's the book that has the whole timeline in it? Star Wars timeline. Go pick that up. It's a few pages in there
Yeah.
compared to the rest.
Yep.
And so seriously, there's going to be some really good stuff that comes in the past. And if you want the true essence of Star Wars, go read these books.
Right.
I mean, and then go pick up. If you want cool stuff to happen, go read the Darth Bane series. Man, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Which is, that's an alternate timeline. All the Legends stuff is still Star Wars. It still rocks. I've got tons of Legends books. Those Darth Bane books are some of the best Star Wars books ever written. Just because they're in Legends doesn't mean they're any worse or any less valuable. They're good Star Wars stories.
And Darth Bane exists. He's a canon character.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they will do something.
Yeah, we're going to get his backstory, and it's very likely going to be extremely similar to the books already. I mean, they're not going to change much. I hope they bring Drew Karpyshyn back to write
Yes.
yes. But we'll just, hopefully that's the case. And I want to be clear, Loaf, we're not saying that you are asking this question because you want to retcon the sequels. We have no idea. We don't know if you want to do that or not. We're just saying a lot of the questions and the speculation you see out on YouTube about the world between worlds being a multiverse or being a retcon device or being Dave's secret tool to undo the sequels underneath Disney's noses, that's just not going to happen. That's a wild fantasy.
And if you want Luke Skywalker doing something cool, go pick up Shadows of the Sith.
Yes, yeah, because it's a great book. We got to always mention it once an episode. I think we're on 14 streak now. I was worried we weren't going to get our mention. But Loaf, thank you for the question. Anyone who's listening, if you want to ask us a question, all you got to do is head on over to patreon.com/Star Wars Station. Find the Patreon tier for you, and you get all of the rewards associated with it.
Yeah, so fun.
Colin,
all good stuff.
Our next segment is going to be really exciting. Lots of big news. Again, no Star Wars TV show means big Star Wars news. And so we've got a few exciting stories to talk about, and they're really variable. They're kind of all over the place. So let's hop into the HoloNet news.
You made the HoloNet.
News time. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, Colin, so let's hop right into it. The first one is Star Wars Path of the Jedi, which is the new Minecraft DLC. And the trailer's showing off some customization and characters, but it just came out. And it looks really cool. I mean, it's Minecraft. It's Star Wars Minecraft. They nailed it. I mean, it's all the Minecraft-shaped people wielding lightsabers, and it looks like a big update.
Oh, you can build your own lightsaber.
Oh, yeah, you can build your own anything. It's Minecraft. You build your own anything. But, yeah, it's set during the prequels. It's set during the Clone War, and all of the locations look really good. They all look really screen accurate. They spent a lot of time on this.
Oh, you're fighting General Grievous in one of the scenes. That's awesome.
Oh, this is like a bona fide Clone Wars game, man. I mean, it looks cool. It's going to be exciting. It frustrates me that we say this a lot.
An Acklay?
Yeah, there is. It has a health bar. You fight the Acklay in the arena. You go to Felucia and fight an Acklay. But it bothers me because we talked about this last week on the video game episode. Star Wars games aren't getting regular updates. If you want new Star Wars content in your video games, which in the 21st century, we update our video games over time. Like, you get new things in video games. You have battle passes. You have things added over time. If you want that for Star Wars, you got to go to Minecraft. You got to go to Fortnite. You got to go to something that's not Star Wars so you can get whatever Star Wars thing you want. And as a fan, it's just really frustrating.
Yeah, the kids are going to really like this. I'm too old for. I've never played Minecraft. I'm too old for it.
That's crazy. No one's too old for Minecraft.
It's
right. Like Lego
right.
sets that say 0 to 99.
Yeah,
or I guess 5 to 99.
You're right. Maybe I'm 100. Maybe I'm immortal. You don't know. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. No, Minecraft's so fun. I think you should try it. I want to try this out. I need to get it. I don't think I have Minecraft on my Xbox, and I know that my PC can't run it. So I haven't played Minecraft in a couple of years, but this DLC looks super exciting.
It does. It makes me want to play it. I mean, for sure.
Yeah, it looks good. And so, if you're playing it, let us know. Go over to the Discord, go to the Facebook group, share your thoughts on it, because it'll be a little while before I get around to it. But when I do play it, I'll stream it.
I want to go home and see if my kids want to play.
Do they love Minecraft? I know kids really like Roblox, right?
So Minecraft has a tad bit of a barrier to entry. My daughter likes Roblox. You have to be able to read to play Minecraft. My kid's 5, and I don't know how to play Minecraft. It's like looking at hieroglyphics to me. So, well, you want to come over and teach my kids how to play Minecraft?
I'll teach Charlie and Katie how to play Minecraft. All right. We now have other news stories to talk about. First one is about books. Kind of. It's more about TV, actually. Timothy Zahn has given a little bit of word on the Ahsoka TV show. So some people who are big fans of the Thrawn books, the canon ones, the original Thrawn trilogy and the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, were a little nervous about Thrawn's portrayal in Ahsoka, because Thrawn in those books, written by Timothy Zahn, the creator of Thrawn, he writes Thrawn as kind of an anti-hero. Thrawn does everything because he cares about the Chiss Ascendancy, his own little part of space where his species is from and exists outside of the Empire, outside of the Republic. And Thrawn serves the Empire because he thinks it's the best way to defend the Ascendancy from threats outside of it. Well, some people felt like Thrawn's lines in Ahsoka were a little bit against this, where he, said, for the glory of the Empire and long live the Empire and things like that, in that Thrawn's only motivated by the Empire. Well, Zahn comes out to say that this is all part of the plan, and that the reason Thrawn wants to come back in Ahsoka and establish the Empire is because he just feels like the New Republic is wholly unequipped to be able to defend the Ascendancy. And honestly, based on Mon Mothma's demilitarization policy, Thrawn's probably not wrong.
Yeah, it's too bad he's such a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. So Zahn has he's fallen so much in love with Thrawn because he's such a good character. But like I said, he writes him as an anti-hero, whereas a lot of people view Thrawn as just an out-and-out villain, because he's an out-and-out villain in the original trilogy, and not the Star Wars original trilogy, the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And Dave sees him as an out-and-out villain in Rebels and in Ahsoka. But Zahn takes a more nuanced view because he loves his character so much, obviously. And so when we were watching Ahsoka, we were wondering, are we going to get villain Thrawn, or are we going to get anti-hero Thrawn? Well, we got villain Thrawn, but if you like anti-hero Thrawn, there's a really comfortable way for you to write that still into the story. And if we get some new novels in the future, it'll probably give you a lot more leg to stand on there, too.
Well, and then also with Ahsoka, the people who show up to thwart his return to the galaxy are like, he has some personal history with those guys.
Yeah.
I imagine he doesn't like them very much, and to leave him on that planet makes him very happy.
Yeah.
In the other galaxy.
Yeah. I believe you're right. So, Colin, our next bit of news, we've been teasing it all podcast, is new Young Jedi Adventures episodes came out today, and it include Bel Zettifar training with Kai, and it has Loden in it. It's got just all kinds of really, really cool High Republic nods.
Yeah, I've seen a clip. I haven't had an opportunity to watch it today. I've been very busy. What I have seen of Young Jedi Adventures is very fun, is very cool, and to see this put in is so much fun. And they go to Starlight Beacon. We saw that in the preview too.
Yeah, hopefully they're not on it.
Well, Loden's not when it goes down.
Yeah, you're right. Loden's not. But it's really exciting. I'm gonna check them out probably right after this episode. I'm gonna see where they take these characters. I mean, they're not going to do any kind of major changes to the plot. They're cameos. I mean, there are ways to get High Republic fans to take a look at this kid's show that they may not have watched. But it's exciting.
And I hope there's some fan service, like showing some background characters. I want to see the ones we talked about earlier, the good guy, the civilians or non-force users, and then maybe the sabotage crew running around.
Right. We didn't mention the biggest cameo is Ember. Ember shows up also in Young Jedi Adventures.
That is Bell Setafar's Char Hound.
Yes,
who breathes fire.
Yes, it is.
Very cool.
It is going to be cool. So, Colin, our last story is also about TV, and that is about The Acolyte and its full list of writers. So they released it last week as we were recording our podcast, and so we didn't get to talk about it. So this news is 6 days old, but we're bringing it to you now, and that is that we got the list. So Leslie Headland, who is the director, is going to be, and she's the showrunner, is doing the first episode, and this was a writer's room, so there's a bunch of people around, but she is the guiding hand of this show. So she's going to be sure, she's got the overarching story and keeping everything in line. But there's a few names on here, a few veterans of House of Dragon are on this list, and so we're going to be seeing some of that. I know that show's been, pretty popular.
Yeah, I enjoyed House of the Dragon a lot.
Charmaine DeGrate is the one who's been the writer for House of Dragon, and so it's going to be really interesting to get to see that. So you've watched House of Dragon?
Oh yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Also,
I was a big Game of Thrones fan when it ended in season 7. Perfect.
I didn't watch it. Still never seen it. And I might never because of season 8.
What are you talking about? I haven't heard that.
We've also got a WandaVision alum with Cameron Squires. Super excited about that. I loved WandaVision.
I enjoyed WandaVision too.
Cora Donna, whose gender I have absolutely no idea on, so I'm not going to make a guess. They wrote Mr. Robot.
Oh God, have you seen that?
No, but I know it's popular.
Man, wow.
Co-executive produced, not wrote.
Fantastic.
Co-executive produced.
Who cares?
It's fantastic.
That
it's good.
show is phenomenal.
Okay, good. Because you're pumping me up because I have a little bit of concern with one of the names on this list. And that is Jason McAuliffe. Jason McAuliffe is co-writing 2 episodes, and then he's writing the finale by himself. And this is not to disparage Jason McAuliffe. I don't know anything about Jason McAuliffe. And so I'm not trying to say that this guy is a bad writer. But what I am trying to say is that this guy has, no writing credits. He's got pretty much nothing. He wrote Heathers in 2018, which was like a remake.
A remake of a Kevin Bacon movie.
Yeah, and it wasn't very popular.
I didn't even know they did that.
And other than that, he wrote a short movie called Butter that I'd never heard of. And a short called Marcel. And that's it. And he's writing the finale. And again, I don't want to disparage this guy as a writer. I don't really know anything about his writing, but that's because he doesn't have a very deep bench. But Heathers wasn't that well received. It doesn't look like Butter got that good of reviews. And so I'm a little nervous that it sounds like they got all these really heavy hitters. They got WandaVision, Mr. Robot, House of Dragon, but they handed the finale off to somebody without any kind of background. And it's not co-written by Leslie Headland. It's written by him alone. It's the only episode, other than the first one, which is written by Leslie Headland, that's written by just one person. Every other episode's 2 people.
Yeah.
And so I'm just scratching my head on the decision here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he had a good pitch. And Lucasfilm wants comfortable with rolling the dice, so I guess we'll see.
Well, we talked about this some, but it always feels this way, that we're getting, Lucasfilm does one of 2 things. They either get directors because they're hot and new and fresh and they want them to direct something, like the Everywhere Everything All at Once directors. They're directing an episode of Skeleton Crew, but they're the new hotness. They won an Oscar, so now they asked them to write a Star Wars because they won an Oscar, not because they said, we got this great idea for Star Wars. Or then you have this on the completely other end, where you have someone with very little experience touching your multi-billion-dollar IP and standing up. And it's not just this instance. I mean, we have in the upcoming Rey film, which I'm very excited about, Charmin Obaid-Chinoy has never directed a full feature-length movie before. She directed a documentary.
Right.
And this documentary has won a bunch of awards, and it's acclaimed, but that's very different than writing a massive feature or directing a massive feature film. And so it just feels like this is the recurring cases. They're either chasing stars and that's not panning out, and they're trying to just play off of their name alone, and those projects don't get made, Taika Waititi, or they got someone without any kind of street cred, and fans have a tummy ache because of it. Because I'm nervous about him writing The Acolytes last episode, because I'm excited about the show. I want it to do really well.
When it comes to stuff like this, it feels really hard to invest in hope. We're just armchair quarterbacking. We're big mega Star Wars fans. I think we have some gravitas that we know what we're talking about in a sense, but on this, I don't feel like, I think we can say from a position of authority that hope is you trust in the Force. You do or do not, there is no try.
Right. Rebellions are built on hope. Yeah. But
rebellions are built on hope for sure, and hope is a good thing, but hoping a writer does a good job isn't where I want to invest.
Yeah. And look, I hope he does. Again,
hoping a writer that doesn't have the how'd you put that?
Just don't have the creds. The resume's not there. Yeah. Like, they don't have the bona fides.
You got to prove it to me. I mean, that's, you got to train to climb Mount Everest.
Right.
And it's not something you casually do.
I'll say, though, I didn't know Bryce Dallas Howard before The Mandalorian. I didn't know Rick Famuyiwa before The Mandalorian. And now I think they should direct whatever they want. Right. And so this is not to say that people I've never heard of are not going to do a good job, because I haven't heard of a lot of writers and directors. I'm not tapped into Hollywood very much. I'm just saying I was thinking that we were going to have somebody with a little bit more cred. But again, I'm rooting for him. This is not an anti-Jason McAuliffe rant. I want him to succeed.
Yep.
But, Colin, that wraps up our news section. We got a lot of exciting news. That was a ton to talk about. And so now all we've got left is our very last segment, and that is our Star Wars moment of the week.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, Colin, what is your Star Wars moment of the week?
So, I saw on Twitter, you sent me a message, and it basically set in motion plans. Make sure I got enough money, make sure I have off that day, November 17th, to buy Stellan Gios's lightsaber.
Good. I'm excited for you to get that.
It's going to be on Shop Disney. It says it's going to sell at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So what is that, 9 for us?
10.
10.
Mountain time between Central.
Oh, yeah, California.
Yeah, the Rocky Mountains are right there.
Yeah. So I know where I'm setting my alarm.
Yeah.
That's what I did this week, is set my alarm for...
Good. That's exciting.
Getting that lightsaber, because it's unique. It's got a cross guard.
But it's got not like the Kylo cross guard. It's got accoutrements on the side. It's got metal and gold inlay, and it looks nice.
And if there's something that occurred in this book, Phase 3 book, about this lightsaber, and I don't want to spoil it.
Can't spoil it.
I hope it's akin to this one. So
good. Well, I'm excited for you to get that. I'm not much of a lightsaber collector. I've only got one really that's worth anything.
You gotta pump those numbers up.
I don't even see it. I wonder where it is. It's disappeared. But anyways, I've only got the one, and so I need to get another. It's a Cal Kestis one. But my Star Wars moment of the week is a little small scale, but it was really interesting. So on this podcast, I've been told that I'm always ragging on the MCU, which I'm not. I'm an MCU fan. I loved all of that all the way up to Endgame, and some of the stuff after Endgame I've really enjoyed. The only thing I rag on is when Star Wars becomes Marvelized, because it's got its own thing. Marvel is its own thing. Star Wars is its own thing. Let's keep them separate. It's the question about the multiverse. Star Wars doesn't need one of those. That's a Marvel thing. And Star Wars doesn't need Marvel humor. Star Wars has its own kind of humor. They have the bantery kind of humor. But I have been doing a rewatch of the MCU at one of my friends' urgings. And so I started doing chronological. So I started with Captain America, watched Captain Marvel, watched all the way through The Winter Soldier. And so I'm right about to start watching Age of Ultron. But the reason I'm bringing this up as my Star Wars moment of the week is watching these movies, especially in hindsight, now that I'm going back and rewatching them, there are so many actors that cross between Star Wars and Marvel. And anytime I see a Star Wars actor in something else, I like it, obviously. You know, you're listening or you're watching Batman the Animated Series and you hear Mark Hamill's Joker and you're like, oh yeah, that's Mark Hamill for sure. But getting to see Stellan Skarsgård in Thor and Natalie Portman in Thor and Ray Stevenson in Thor. It's mainly Thor. Thor's mainly where all these characters are coming from. But you know, you're watching an Iron Man movie and you hear Jarvis's voice and you're like, holy cow, Dryden Voss is in this movie? Like, you see Paul Bettany on screen and he's right there. And then, obviously, Jon Favreau, Samuel L. Jackson. Like, there are so many actors in these Marvel movies that either got their start in Star Wars, like Natalie Portman, or they were in Marvel first, and now they've gotten this great role in Star Wars. They've become a really big part of the universe, and so it's been cool going back and watching these and recognizing so many of these actors.
Yeah, man, gosh, there's too many. There's probably some we haven't even noticed too.
This is just the movies that I've watched so far. I'm sure later there's a ton more. I know there's got to be. Like Ben Mendelsohn, actually, he's in Captain Marvel. The guy who plays Krennic is a Skrull in Captain Marvel, and he's probably the best part of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
so much cool stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I enjoyed the early MCU. Some of this later stuff isn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All the way up until Endgame, I really didn't have much complaints. Obviously, Thor: The Dark World's not great. Iron Man 3's but, like, they were all fine. I still really enjoyed them. And now we're at the point where I just don't care. I used to be an opening weekend Marvel guy, and now I haven't. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but
I saw that one too. My dad wants to watch that. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I went and saw Ant-Man. I went and saw Doctor Strange.
Quantumania. You saw Quantumania? I did not go see Quantumania.
I might have seen it on Disney Plus, and I do want to watch the Marvels movie. I don't know.
It's coming
out
this weekend.
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, like, I need something to do this weekend.
I saw, it's really, Marvel's fallen super far, and we sit here in Star Wars and we can complain sometimes about the state of our movies or whatever, but I'm going to say it could always be worse. We could be getting bad movies, like I think Marvel's getting. I mean, there's just no, Marvel movies used to be a big event, like Iron Man 3. Like, it's not even the Avengers, it's not some big crossover. Iron Man 3 just has Tony in it. Like, I don't think there's another superhero other than War Machine in that movie. And people were hype. It sold out theaters. It was a big event to go to a Marvel movie. And then Endgame happened, and it just all fizzled away. It's part of COVID, but it's also superhero fatigue and a bunch of other problems. And so now I saw on Twitter just a post about how screenings of the Marvels in the movie theater in the middle of New York, how there's not reserved seats. There's like 2 or 3. I went back and looked at ours. There's also like, I mean, we don't live in New York, but in our local theaters, there's like 2 or 3 reserved seats for all of the showings. And it comes out in 2 days. And that's just wouldn't have been the case 5 years ago for any Marvel movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it did fall off a cliff. And like the Eternals. Did you watch the Eternals?
Man, okay, so look. I did watch the Eternals, and everybody rags on that movie. I didn't dislike the Eternals. It was long. I didn't
dislike it
either.
But
it was not even close to the worst one.
But it's like the stepchild of some of these. Like, they don't mention that. That's kind of like a meme in some of these Quantum Mania. It's like, hey, mention that there's this. What do you call it? With its hand sticking out on the other side.
Oh,
of the planet.
yeah, they still haven't mentioned whatever that Celestial.
Yeah. And you know, there's some problem with, you know, you go and watch Mandalorian Season 2, and then you go and watch Mandalorian Season 3, and you're like, where did Grogu come from? Because for whatever reason, they didn't watch Book of Boba Fett. We can't say why. So now, you go to watch Quantumania. Well, who's this Kane character? Where'd he come from?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in a TV show you got to go watch. And so, there's some discombobulation there with Marvel, for sure.
The interconnectedness of Marvel movies used to be, you know, they mention the name Doctor Strange in The Winter Soldier, and you're really excited. You're like, oh, that's so neat. Wow, they said Doctor Strange. That's cool. Or Tony shows up in the end credit scene of The Incredible Hulk. But now the interconnectedness is so much so that you have to do homework to watch these things. And it's seeping into Star Wars. You had to really do homework to appreciate Ahsoka to its fullest. I had a friend, he stopped halfway through Ahsoka, went and watched all of Rebels before he would pick it back up because he was like, I don't understand what's going on. He was like, I want to understand what's going on. I'm a big enough Star Wars fan to understand what's going on, so I'm going to go watch Rebels. I'm happy he watched Rebels. I hate that he had to stop in the middle of the show coming out to go watch 4 seasons of TV just to get what's going on. That's not good storytelling. That's not how these IPs are going to stick around. That's not how you get this. You know, Star Wars has been with us for 50 years. If we want it to last another 50 years or another 500 years, then you can't make people do homework. You can't make the average viewer do homework. Am I happy to do homework? Yeah, I love doing it because I want to know the ins and outs of all of this. It's super exciting for me to do that.
Like reading 9 books in a month and a half.
Exactly. But that's not, average people don't want to do that. And so if you're going to get Star Wars to resonate with everybody, you cannot go down this Marvel path of you got to watch and understand all of this to get what's going on. You need to be delivering stories that can be informed by other stories or that can wink and nod at other stories, but that are wholly consumable on their own. Like The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. Before the Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, that's why it was so popular, was because in 2019, a person who was a Star Wars fan, had seen the original trilogy, liked the prequels, had maybe seen all the sequels, might not have seen Solo, maybe didn't see Rogue One, maybe spottily only saw the sequels. They hadn't kept up with Star Wars and known all the ins and outs, but they could sit down and watch The Mandalorian, not have to care about where it takes place, and enjoy the story. And that is how you keep Star Wars around. And you can do both. You can give hardcore fans like us the nods and the tie-ins and the connectivity.
Because we're buying all the comic books and books, too.
Exactly. While also keeping the integrity of the singular story at the forefront.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That's quite a moment of the week.
Yeah, that was a big moment of the week segment. What a way to end our podcast, just griping about Marvel. People are going to say, I mean, that's just, after listening to that, people are still going to say that I hate Marvel, which, whatever. Maybe I don't like the new stuff. I don't know. But that wraps up our Star Wars Station communication podcast for today. I'm super excited for next week, though. I want 7 days to pass like that so we can talk to you guys about the Eye of Darkness next week. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to do that. But until then, you guys can keep engaging with us on all kinds of platforms. We're on Twitter at SW_station. That's where you can find a lot of High Republic thoughts. We're on Instagram at StarWars.station. You can find all kinds of memes there. Join our Discord and our Facebook group. You can find the links to those in this podcast description. Also, please, if you've made it this far, we know you like the podcast, so give us a 5-star review. They help us the most of anything that you could possibly do by sharing us with your friends and by putting it out there that you enjoyed our podcast, because the algorithm pays attention to those reviews. So every 5-star review you can leave helps us out and is worth it. And if you want to help contribute a little more, then you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsStation. We've got all kinds of exclusive podcasts over there. We've got T-shirts. We've got all kinds of stickers and everything else over there. Another place,
Star Wars RPG.
Star Wars RPG. And another place that you can support us and find stickers and other kinds of merch is at StarWarsStationPodcast.com, our new website that Colin made that looks great, that I hope all of our listeners will go check out.
Yeah, it's fun. We've had some sales on there. We got some stickers and more stickers coming. And lots of products coming out on the Warhammer side. That stuff is slow, but we got to get it right.
Yeah, Warhammer Station, Colin's project that's been going for a few months now, still cranking along. Yeah. You guys definitely all need to go subscribe, check that out, check it out on Instagram.
Yeah, and trying to do more. There's lots of stuff. It's a busy time of year. It seems like we say that every podcast, but the journey is what I'm enjoying here, doing all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And we got lots of little things going on. I think we're building something really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you need to be part of.
Well, and we appreciate you being a part of it just by listening to this. We thank you guys so much. Please continue to engage with us on all platforms. And until next week, stay wizard.